Tom has been working to build back these relationships with people. Some people have gotten angry and left with Pastor Younggun, but that's a very small amount of people. And even the people who were on Team Younggun are staying. And everyone feels like we're almost there. Like it's gonna get better. We're just waiting. It's gonna click for Tom.
Yeah, it's almost like they got this glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Of like, wow, there is another way and it could work and it's all great. And it's like, I mean, I know that's how I felt. Like, I really felt like we got to see this like new horizon and we were just so close from this point on. Like that, I would agree with that. That's how I felt.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
What's a place there shouldn't be abuse? Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims to.
Well, it ruins your soul.
If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
Tom, I really feel like during this time, he was trying to undermine anything that Younggun did. And so he was really trying to like, well, I know he did that good, but like he was doing this wrong. Or yeah, he was okay at that, but really I told him to do that. Right? And so one of the things that was mentioned during this time that people were really lacking and missing was Younggun's investment in the men in the church. He really did take the time to get to know the guys and what was going on in their life and really push them to be the best versions of themselves. The issue with this is Tom didn't want the men to be the best versions of themselves. He wanted them to be the best version of what he thought they should be. So Tom gets on this kick that we are building up the men of the church. That is what God has called us to do. We are building up the men of the church. And so one of those men that we talked about a couple episodes ago was Clark Griswold. And him and his wife have a heart for the community. So they come up with this idea because it is decided we are not doing the big summer park event this year. I personally, this is just hindsight 2020, I think we blew our wad on Christmas and all of that.
Yeah, we didn't have the money.
And the sheds, and now we have no money. And we thought all of this was going to bring in all of these new people who were going to tithe.
Right, yeah. And that's a big key point because at this point, like over the last few years, because really, we haven't talked about the big summer park event in a while. But I think something to point out is to understand that a lot of big givers have dropped off the scene.
Yeah.
Over the last, couple of years. And so, like we're talking about big givers and those people have stopped coming to the church. And so the church is down financially.
Yeah. I mean, like Beth Moore, her and her husband gave a crap ton of money to the church.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and then all of those people who gave a crap ton of money to the church consistently throughout the year, when it came time for the big summer park event, like they funded it.
Yeah.
And so I doesn't, yeah, like, God's calling us in a different direction. I mean, our pocketbook is a little light this year.
Yes, 100%. So, Clark Griswold and his wife come up with this idea that we're going to do the big summer park event, but we're going to do it on a very small scale. So our community has, each kind of neighborhood has their own park. So there are well over a dozen parks in our community. So his idea is that we are going to have a miniature version of the big summer park event in each neighborhood. So it's not meant for the entire community to come to. It's meant for that neighborhood to come to. So because there's less people, the idea is that you have more one-on-one interaction with people and you're able to really talk with them, build relationships, and share with them what Come As You Are is all about. Now, keep in mind, the Griswolds, they're filling the call of possibly being a pastor. And so Tom is really big into this, like, let the men lead kind of thing. I think also part of that is all the issues he had with Beth Moore, with me and Brandi. He's kind of over these female leaders, and he wants the men to step up. And it is made very clear to me that if a man wants to take over the sound booth, I'm going to have to step aside. So these men are kind of feeling it out and seeing, what can we do and everything. A lot of them get involved with these little miniature park events that are done, throughout.
You know what I just realized?
What?
Is this whole time, like, I have been thinking it was something against me personally. Like that I could never do like certain things that I wanted to do. Like when it came to like the worship team, like I've like internalized a lot of that struggle and a lot of judgment that I've probably created and perceived that was on me. And the truth of the matter is that it just wasn't a man. Like
Oh, 100%.
And I totally just thought about that, right? I was like, you said that, and I was like, wow. Like, I feel like that totally, like, just summed that up in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And here I was speaking it personally.
No, 100%. If you had your same drive and your same talent and your same ambition and your only difference was you had a wiener, 100% you would have been leading that shit.
No, you totally. Like, oh, I never even realized that before. Oh my gosh. Anyway, go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's how it was.
That's how
everything.
Was.
To the point where the guy who led VBS the previous year under Young Gun's leadership, right? He steps up and he's like, well, I'm going to lead VBS again this year. The men are leading stuff. I'm going to lead. A couple weeks ago, so in episode 6 over on our Patreon, I talk about this guy and the tamale, what led the tamale lady to want to leave the church. And it all centered around this guy who led the shipwrecked VBS. Right? And Charlotte did some shady stuff. My husband was involved. I share that whole story over on Patreon. So go over to our Patreon. Even if you don't want to sign up for a subscription, you could buy just individual episodes and you can listen to that story. But that kind of has a little bit to do with why Tom is not 100% on this guy leading VBS. So not only are we planning these mini park events, we're also planning for this VBS because everything's going to like launch right after school lets out, right? And a lot of it has to do with like what I share on Patreon, but some of it also has to do with this guy. Like, he just isn't, he's not the type of leader Tom wants.
Right.
And I think some of it has to do with the fact he was an electrician and he was not willing to come in at the drop of a hat whenever Tom called to work on the new addition to the building the previous year. And if he was going to come in, he expected to be paid for it.
Yeah.
And Tom doesn't like that. You're giving your time, your talent, and your treasure to the church. And why do you need the church to pay you? So Tom does not like this guy. Tuesdays in the office, Tom is ranting about how inept this guy is and how he can't do anything and all of this stuff, to the point where Brandi's even like, should I even be letting him like lead a classroom? Because he's like a children's ministry classroom leader. And Tom didn't care about that. Tom didn't care he's leading our children on a Sunday morning.
Things don't matter.
That should give you a little bit of a clue as to how Tom really truly feels about the family. Yeah.
It's okay to teach the children whatever. It's fine.
Yeah. Tom could give two craps about the family. When it comes down to it, Tom wants the dads on board so they can tithe. And he needs the moms on board to keep the dads invested.
And to do all the work.
Yeah, and honestly, yes, to do all the work. So,
and the dads have to be on board so the moms aren't complaining that they have to go home to their husbands who won't let them serve at church, you know. And then they have to get jobs.
So, we have a leadership meeting. And in this leadership meeting, Tom gets frustrated because in his mind, the men are not stepping up and doing what he wants them to do. So Tom proclaims to all of the leadership meeting that it's not that hard. I've led VBSs before. And it's not that difficult. And I don't understand why no man can do this. Am I going to have to lead this VBS? That's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to lead this VBS to show all the men that it's not that hard. And everyone's making it a bigger deal than it needs to be. Men need to step up and lead. I'm just going to do this to show everyone. So Tom.
Well, no, Tom, they actually all have Monday through Friday jobs, and
yeah.
And you're asking them to come and lead VBS. I don't know.
And not everyone has someone who is on the payroll to be at their beck and call like I am for Tom.
They don't all have personal assistants, Tom.
So Tom decides he's going to lead this VBS. But in all reality, Brandi and I are... Tom says, let's do this. And then Brandi and I have to make it happen. But then when we come to him and we're like, okay, what are we doing about crafts or about snack? Well, I don't care. You guys figure it out. So what Tom wanted was Tom wanted to control what Bible stories we were telling. He didn't want to be the one to tell the stories. He wanted to control what stories we told. So we went through all of these VBS curriculums. And of course, the two main ones that we have used for years and years, Group and Lifeway, Tom didn't like them at all. He hated them. Years ago, Brandi and I had ordered some children's ministry material from Answers in Genesis, which is a very apologetic based company. Answers in Genesis comes out with a VBS. It doesn't have the the resources that something like Lifeway or Group does. It doesn't have it doesn't have the registration software or anything like that we have grown accustomed to. So we know we're going to have to do this old school by hand, a lot of it. But this is the one Tom picks because According to Tom, this is the only one that is presenting the gospel the correct way. Tom hated the fact that Lifeway and Group used cartoon characters every day. So every day you got introduced to a new character. So like with the Everest VBS, you had a saber-toothed tiger, or maybe it was a snow leopard or something. I forget what it was.
Yeah, there was a snow leopard and
a seal and
mammoth.
Yeah. So you had all of these, animals that lived in like cold places, right? For like the shipwrecked one, you had like a bird, and you had a dolphin, a fish, like, tropical animals. I think there was a lizard. And so Tom didn't like that. He thought that was too gimmicky, and it was taking away from the true meaning of the gospel. And these children need to understand the true gospel. I don't know why he had a beef with this. He was pro VeggieTales, so I don't know why we could have a vegetable tell us the gospel, but not a toucan. I don't understand the difference. But anyway, Tom decides that we have to use this Answers in Genesis. So the theme for this VBS is Run Your Race. And it's all based off of run your race with endurance. And, I forget where it's, but, run your race.
It's in Ephesians.
Yeah, probably.
Or Philippians, but I think it's Ephesians.
So, Tom controls what Bible verses, what stories we're going to tell, all of that. We changed some of the curriculum a little bit because he doesn't like what's in the curriculum. So we changed a little bit, but pretty much everything else, when we're like, okay, we need, if we're going to have, group leaders, we probably need this many group leaders. And of course, women would sign up, but Tom was like, nope, I want, here's my list. You call these men. Tom wouldn't even call the guys. Tom would give the list to me and Brandi, and we would have to call these men and be like, Tom would really love it if you would consider, being a group leader. Tom sees so much potential in you, and really talk these men up. And essentially what we were doing is we were trying to convince them that you need to take an entire week off of work and come and sit with little kids.
Well, and isn't this when Jason was Brandi's husband was able, but he had work incentive, and then Tom would use him and be like, well, Jason took a whole week off of work to volunteer for VBS. He's doing what he's supposed to be.
So the job Jason was working at the time, each of their employees was expected to do community service. So you had to do so many hours of community service, but you got paid to do it. But you did it in the name of the company.
Yeah.
So it made the company look good that their people are out there doing all these service projects. And the employees are like, yeah. So Jason is like, of course I will come and sit at VBS.
Yeah. Because he didn't take off of work. His work was paying him to volunteer.
Yeah, he was being paid to be there.
When I found it out, I was like, what? That's not how that was put out.
No other man had that luxury. But you're right. Tom would use him as well, Jason's been doing this for years. Yeah, because Jason's getting paid to do it.
And he looks really good at work that he comes and volunteers at VBS.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's Hebrews 12 is.
Oh, there we go. Hebrews.
I looked it up really quick.
So, that's right. Because it comes right after the
Hebrews
Hall of
11,
Faith.
the Hall of Faith. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, we're not only planning all these little mini park events with the Griswolds.
Right, which is just a little barbecue. They're going to send out flyers. They're having a barbecue. They're inviting people to have a burger and a hot dog and play at the park.
Yeah.
And were they doing like inflatables or anything, or were they just having like
no. Like
park
they brought,
time and we're going to feed you for free and come hang out
yeah.
at the park?
We had games, like we had
Okay.
water games, like with like squirt guns and stuff, and then like cornhole and things like picnicky
Okay.
games.
Yeah, like we're having a barbecue picnic in your neighborhood. We
Mhm.
want to feed you for free, and we're going to do like 10 to 12 of these this summer or whatever.
Yeah. And the idea was that it would be the neighborhoods where like come as you are people lived in. So you would be like the quote unquote host or sponsor
Or like
of your
liaison.
of your neighborhood, and you were responsible for like, you know, talking
Invite
to
your
the
neighbors.
HOA or putting it out on like next door or putting it on like your community Facebook group and talking it up to your neighbors was kind of the plan of it. And honestly, like these went over really well, and we'll kind of like get a little bit more into that as we move into the fall, but like these go over super well and people like them. And it's actually, we had a few people come to the church because of these mini park events. And we haven't seen new people come to the church because of the big summer park event in years at this point. So we're doing this VBS, and we're kind of like launching it through these mini park events. Like, hey, we have VBS coming up. You could sign up and all of this stuff, right? So we are going into this VBS, and I am not allowed to teach in any capacity. Because as much as Tom is starting to trust me and give me tasks in the office and kind of confide in me about some stuff, I think Charlotte still had her say of Amanda still does not need a microphone. So I come up with this idea that I am going to do science experiments with the kids.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. And so we do science outside in the back parking lot. I really like this. And my oldest son and some of the youth boys were my helpers. Like the day where we talked about like Jesus walks on water, we made like oobleck, so like cornstarch and water. And I filled huge like kiddie pools up with
that was
it.
so much fun.
So the kids could actually like walk on water. I built a flower cannon. So my husband essentially built like a pressurized, like if you think of like a potato gun, but I filled it with a 5-pound bag of flour, and we shot it in the air, and like flour kind of like rained down, and it was like spreading the love of Jesus. Like we did some cool stuff, right? Like we did elephant toothpaste, and we put Mentos in soda bottles. Like,
yeah, that was good fun.
Yeah. But in prepping for all of this, do you think Tom went anywhere and picked up supplies or anything? I have a picture. I will put it up on our social media, and I'll put it up over on our Patreon. But I have a picture of the back of my car where Brandi and I have to go to like Costco and Sam's and buy all the supplies. Like we get all the snack stuff, all the craft stuff. Like we go to all of these places, and the entire back of my car is loaded with this stuff, right? So we go into this VBS, and we realize we need an MC. We need someone who is going to get the kids hyped up, keep the kids excited throughout the day, but someone who is going to give a crap, like who's actually going to care about the lessons, care about the crafts. They're not just talking at the kids, but they want to have a conversation with the kids. And so Tom throws out some ideas of some men that he thinks would be great at this. And this one mom who she'd helped at VBS's before and everything, she steps up and she's like, I would really like to do this. And she has a baby. And so this was like one of those, like her little boy was like a year old or something at this time. So it was like she could do the MC stuff, but then she could still go and take care of her baby because he had like food allergies and stuff like that. And so she could still like be there for him and not be like completely preoccupied all day long, right? She could kind of pop in and out. So that was the plan. And then at the last minute, like we're talking like the week before VBS,
I think it was like the day before.
Was it? I don't even remember. It was short notice.
It was the day before. Because if I remember, it was like the next, like, it was like that soon.
Yeah.
The day before.
It was like a super short time frame that she tells us she's not going to be able to do it. And we're like, well, crap. So Brandi says, let's ask Melissa.
Yeah, because I got a text the day before. Like, our MC can't do this. We need somebody to MC. Can you MC?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, when? And she was like, tomorrow. Sure. Yeah. I will show up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Like,
I remember having the conversation with her of like, who do we know that like just get on stage and keep the kids like entertained and engaged?
Yeah. Here, you got 20 minutes and a microphone. Go.
Yeah. Here's your bullet points. Yeah. Like, I remember
and
like
I was working, like I didn't have to work until like 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, so granted, it was really like the sacrifice for me was like, I had to get up early in the morning after working until like midnight, 1:00 in the morning, whatever. Okay. That's my life anyway. Like, even if I didn't have to work, like, let's be real, I'm not going to bed that early and I get up early anyway. So, but yeah, she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I don't work until like 2:00 in the afternoon, so I can come and do VBS in the morning. But I had not done anything for this VBS. No,
I remember you were like, what's the theme? Like, what are we even doing?
Yeah, like I hadn't planned. Wasn't attending. I wasn't like volunteering. Like, I was absolutely not involved with it at all.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, here's a script for the day.
Yeah. And I would I would write your script and it wasn't even like scripted out. I would give you like bullet points and be like, touch on these things.
This is what the theme is. Okay.
Yeah. Here's the story. Here's the verse. Here's the craft.
That VBS was so much fun. I had a blast.
I had fun too. And I honestly, I think it was so much fun because all of the stuff that went on, like all of the things that like people would get mad about, Tom was the leader.
Yeah.
And so like, this is the first VBS we ever did at Come As You Are that Tom was there and present for. All other VBSs, he would sit in his office and he'd open the curtains and he'd watch the parents come and go with the kids. He wouldn't come over and see what we were doing. He wouldn't come over and like watch worship or listen to a story or walk through. Like, he wouldn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And so this is the first one where he is there all day. So he shows up day one. And of course, because Tom's leading it, everyone has to get these jerseys. So we in years past, we've done like, you know, you go buy like the agency D3, you go buy a black t-shirt. We printed out a bunch of like iron-on transfers.
Yeah.
Like badges, like secret agent badges. You bring us your shirt, we'll iron on your badge for you. We had never had the budget to be able to buy these shirts for people. And we weren't going to ask people to spend $14 on a shirt they're going to wear for 1 week and then never wear again. But no, Tom was like, no, we're buying these shirts. And not only are we buying these shirts, we are going to get every kid who attended VBS a shirt. We're going to buy them a shirt. So all of our budget, the
I have a lot to say
entire
about that.
budget, went to shirts.
I have a lot to say about that. Like, let's just like capsulate Tom's leading style just in this moment of leading VBS. Like, I'm not doing a damn thing. Telling people what to do, what I want, and they're going to make it happen, right? And then it's got nothing to do with content or creation. But gosh, if everybody has a shirt and it just looks like we're doing something, like the look of it all, like I know somebody could do a whole psychological study just on the fact of like how, like, I gave you a shirt so you belong. And it doesn't matter what we're doing in the content of any of this or what's really going on. You have a shirt.
Well, and keep in mind, when we did the other VBSs through Lifeway or through group, they had things that the kids went home with. They had like little keychains with the
Bible verses on them.
And the characters.
Let's send kids home with a Bible verse.
Yeah, or they had stickers, or...
No, we can't do that. We have to give them a shirt with our logo on it.
Yes. So we had to have these shirts printed that had the Run Your Race logo, but it also had Come As You Are on it.
Yeah.
So we had to have these shirts specially printed. Now, just like everything else we do at Come As You Are, do you think we put a cap on, like, you need to be signed up by this date and give us your t-shirt size?
No, why would we do that?
No. Because his big plan was everyone sends their kid to VBS and then they forget about us. So we're going to have their kid come to VBS and then we're going to order all of the shirts after, because we can't order it during VBS. We have to wait till it's over, because even if a kid wants to come for the last day, we're going to let them come for that last day, and they deserve a shirt too. So we had to wait till VBS was completely over. We order these shirts, and then Brandi and I and our kids drive our asses around the community and deliver all of these shirts to these families.
Like, what is this? This is asinine. Like, literally, like, you didn't even get to wear the shirt at VBS. Like, the thing that you would connect the shirt to. Like, there's no
2 weeks later
connection to the shirt. Like, the kid's like, I got a shirt. The kid doesn't even remember that they did VBS at that point.
2 weeks later. And then we delivered them with a gospel track and invitation to come to church. So stupid. And keep in mind, they're just regular t-shirts. When we make a big deal at VBS, hyping it up all week long, you're going to get a t-shirt. You're going to get a t-shirt. They see these jerseys that all of the adults and volunteers at VBS are wearing, so they're expecting the jersey. This cool jersey, and instead, they get a janky t-shirt with our church's logo on it.
That they didn't even get to wear at VBS.
That they didn't even get to wear when they came to VBS. But Tom shows up in one, and his biggest thing is he wanted this picture of him acting like he's running in front of the doors going into the sanctuary.
Oh my God.
That in his jersey. He wanted me to take a picture of him.
Okay.
Like, turn to the side, pretending like in a running pose.
Yeah. For what? What did he want the picture for?
So he could post it and show people that
he participated.
On his personal Facebook page, he posted this picture and made a post about how God wants men to run their race with endurance and step up and be the leaders. I don't even... Yeah.
Like, what do you say to that? And you're like...
That was his biggest thing, is we have to have these jerseys and you have to take this picture of me. The rest of VBS.
Do you think he really thinks he did something?
Oh, I guarantee he does, because he's still telling the story about how successful that VBS was because he led it. All these women get in their mind that they could lead and they can do all this stuff, and I had to lead this VBS to show them. He still tells the story.
You approved a curriculum and you put on a shirt and took a picture.
Yeah.
And you ordered shirts 2 weeks after. Like, I don't understand. Like, you know, kids wear pretty general size, right? If you need to order a couple extra, you can get them in and you send them to them. But they should have had the shirts for the kids on day one. Yeah. Like, it's not that hard to be like, hey, we're expecting 15 kids per grade, and kids this grade typically wear this shirt. And if they need one size up or one size down, you give it to them. Like, it's not that difficult.
And we even brought that up of like, hey, what if we just order like bulk of some sizes? Yeah. And then we just make, you know, more orders as we go. And it's not like we were ordering like from an online thing. We were ordering from a print shop.
Yeah.
The next town over.
Yeah.
Like, we had to drive.
And you have an idea of people that are, and you're not ordering thousands of shirts. We're not talking about like,
no, you know, you're talking about 80 kids.
Yeah. But even if you go to like events and stuff, they order shirts and they have them there for you to wear at the event. That's what makes the shirt memorable.
Yeah.
Small, medium, and large. What do you need? I might have an extra large over here. I might have a medium over here. Like, you know what? Like, they move up and they move. Come on. Yeah. Not that difficult.
No.
That just shows you the motivation behind. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, and it was actually Charlotte who said absolutely not, because Charlotte's like, we're going to get stuck with a bunch of extra shirts. And I said, so we give them out for children's ministry stuff. Yeah. Can you say your memory verse for the month? You get a shirt.
You want these kids to take shirts home so bad? Like, who gets free? That's what you're like, what? It doesn't make any sense. Like, you're buying it for the publicity. It's just, there's so many things, so many different layers. I don't even know where to begin with that.
Yes. So, honestly, the rest of VBS for me was a little bit of a blur. The day where we made oobleck, we mixed the cornstarch and the water in the pool. In my 30s, I have developed like an intolerance or an allergy to corn. And so like eating it will make me sick, but I figured, because I had shucked corn before and it made me break out in hives. So I was like, surely cornstarch. I know if I eat cornstarch, it's going to make me sick. So I'm like, I bet if I mix this, it's going to give me a rash. So I asked the youth boys if, you know, I'll tell you what to do. Can you mix it? They're like, oh yeah, we got you, Miss Amanda. That morning when we were mixing it, there was a breeze and it blew like a fine mist of the cornstarch as they were dumping it into the pool. The breeze kind of caught a little bit of it and it got on me. I had blister hives. Like, I had blisters anywhere. Like, so I had my jersey on, but I had like the sleeves of it kind of like tucked up in my bra.
Yeah.
And I had shorts on. So my arms, my chest, like where the shirt kind of scooped down, and my legs, anywhere that had touched my skin, I got blister hives.
Wow.
And it hurt so bad. And so I had someone go and get me Benadryl. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of took the like stinging and the itch away, but I still had these like hives and these blisters and they hurt. And so I had asked, like, can someone come and cover, like, the boys know what we're doing. They just needed an adult out there with them. I asked Tom if he could come out there and cover for me, and he said no.
What? Oh my gosh.
And so I fought through that whole day.
Gosh.
Covered in blisters. And then I went home and I took an oatmeal bath, and I just kind of like, I would like rinse my skin, and I would put like some like lotion, like medicated lotion on, and I would just kind of sit for a little bit, and then I would rinse my skin again. And I use like the Benadryl cream on like the really bad parts. But I mean, I had those blisters for the rest of the week.
You poor thing. Like, I was rolling around on rollerblades. That was like such a fun, like, as soon as I caught like the theme, I was like, cool. We're doing different modes of transport. I think I brought a bike. Like, I was
such a good job,
having the best time of my life. And you poor thing, you had like these hive blisters.
And Tom wouldn't let me go home.
Yeah, I didn't even know. Like, I mean, I know that now, but like, I didn't like.
Yeah.
I didn't know it during the VBS. Like, I knew afterwards.
And then, of course, Brandi and I still had to stay and clean up every day.
Yeah, and I'm totally oblivious. I'm just like, I'm having a great time. I'm dressed up in a costume, rolling around on rollerblades and a bicycle.
But honestly,
kids, are you walking this way?
You did such a good job. And, like, you took on, like, I know we kind of, like, threw stuff at you and was like, here. You like embodied exactly like what, like if I had to dream up like my dream MC for this of like what they would do, like you did it all and we didn't even have to ask you. Like I gave you a piece of paper with like some bullet points and a Bible verse on it, and you were the one who was like, this day I'm going to have roller skates on. The next day I'm going to be on a scooter. The next day I'm going to have a bicycle. Like you had all these different things. And the day you were on a scooter and you had like a bike helmet on and you're like rolling around on the stage and you're like talking to the kids and you're asking them, you know, did you do this craft today? And it was like the end of the day and you're doing like we're waiting for everyone to come in so we can kind of do our closing thing. And you're like, you know, who ate this snack today? What did you do outside with Miss Amanda? Like, I mean, you're like, you know, all into it, right? And Brandi and I are in the sound booth. And Tom comes up there and he's like, she's awesome. And Brandy's like, I know, right? Like, she's doing such a good job. And Tom looks at us in the eye and goes, who is that?
Oh, wait, it gets better.
And I'm like, for a split second, I thought he was joking. And so, like, I kind of laughed, and Brandi and her, like, Brandi attitude was like, that's Melissa. And Tom goes, Melissa who? Girl. The Melissa who's married to your son. Like, she's your daughter-in-law. She comes to your house every Sunday for dinner. How do you not know who this is?
Like, I see you almost every day, Brad. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of times that I see you in a week. Like, who? Melissa,
like,
who?
Do you ever watch, like, TV shows? Like, Hannah Montana. Like, my sister loved Hannah Montana. And so, like, it would annoy me where it's like, all she did was put on a wig. Like, it's the same person. All she has on is a wig. That's what it was like.
Yeah.
Because all you had on was a bicycle helmet.
Well, and the part that boggles my mind is, like, the fact that when you went through your Rolodex of Melissas who may or may not be at a VBS, right?
Yeah.
There are 3. like, but I mean, like, seriously, like, okay, there's a stage, right? Let's just look at the context clues. There's a stage. There's a microphone. There's a performer. Like, out of all the Melissas you know, there's really only one that checks all those boxes. Like, even if you can't see that it's me. Like, even if it was dark and you couldn't see it was me, and I got a helmet on, when somebody says that's Melissa, like, I should have popped up in your brain. Like, that's just all there is to it.
The
like,
other ones were not involved in theater.
Children's worship.
Yeah.
Who do you think is on the stage?
They're not involved in the theater ministry. They're not involved in worship. They're not involved in children's ministry. They don't even come to church on a regular basis. You are the only one.
Yeah, that's it.
So-
that's it. That's the part that boggles my mind is I'm like, okay, like, let's take up like the sheer, like, if that's not the reality of like the obliviousness, and I don't mean like in a like, oh my God, I don't understand kind of oblivious, but like just the sheer level of the perception that Tom has of you, and you will never break out of that mold, whatever that box is he's put you in, whatever that identity is. Like, it didn't matter what I did or what I could do. And like, when you told me that, like when I heard that story for the very first time, I mean, it made so many things make sense of like comments he would make when I would say things, or things that I would like be all excited about doing, and it would just be like whoop over his head. Like, he'd be completely oblivious. But it was like, that right there is that he had no concept of who I was, the things that I did, or anything. Like, were you just so busy every Sunday, like keeping track of the chords for the song in your head, that you didn't pay attention to the person that was singing and speaking in the microphone next to you? Because like, we're not talking about a whole huge Rolodex of people. We're talking about like you said, like I said, even if you were blind,
and beyond all of that, you are married to his kid.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It just shows you that he really could give two craps about if it didn't fit into his agenda. And, you know, like, he had absolutely no desire to, and I think this speaks to a lot of people. Like, if it didn't fit within the picture of what he wanted or what he needed, like if you weren't useful to him, then you were out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. 100%.
And nothing that I wanted to do or could have, like, there was no support in that, because what I was doing or needed to do, or what I'm gifted to do, didn't fit into your agenda or your script. So therefore I serve no purpose.
Yeah. So this VBS,
Melissa,
I mean,
who?
it was a fun.
I'm sorry.
No.
Melissa, who? What?
This VBS, it was fun. Like, blisters and Tom's oblivion aside, this was a fun VBS. Like, this is one that even my kids still talk about, right? And so this was a fun one. Over on our Patreon, we're going to talk a little bit more about these little mini summer park events. And I have a story about the 4th of July, because Tom, I have finally proven myself to be worthy of Tom's trust. VBS is what clinched it and pushed me over the edge. So now, even though Tom has kind of slightly been confiding in me and everything, like, this is like, I have his full trust, and he is sharing more with me. And this causes a little bit of an issue on the 4th of July. So I'm going to share that story over on our Patreon.
Is it appropriate for me? But look at you. You arrived.
I know. Yay!
Yay, you!
Spoiler alert. It sucks for me.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for.
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.